Hey, it's me again. So, I know I promised you guys a video about narcissistic parents, and here it is. I know it took a while. You know me. I try to be consistent, guys. I really do. It's hard. But this is going to be my last video about narcissism. As I gave you 2 videos about it so far, about what it was to be narcissistic or have tendencies, and then I gave you the types of narcissism. So this one is pretty much going to be about narcissistic parents and 10 signs of a narc parent. So we'll jump in. So a narcissistic parent is pretty much someone who suffers from the personality disorder, or someone who has been affected by a narcissist. Well, not by a narcissist, but yes, more or less, yeah, because the person is affected by someone who has narcissism or has themselves had a narcissistic parent, so they therefore become a narcissistic parent. So typically narcissistic parents are exclusive and possessively close to their children or child, and they are usually threatened by the child, not obviously physically, but because the child can grow independent and they no longer need them, so they don't have a source. Then they also, what's the word I'm looking for? They need emotion. They need to be able to emotionally manipulate the child. They show them lack of empathy, and they also neglect them. And all of these things are to basically keep the control, keep the power. So there are also narcissistic parents that live through the child, so they kind of make them do all the things they want, may have wanted to do, because most of the time a narcissistic person is pretty much all hype. They never really do any of the things they say. They just like the idea of that, hey, I'm going to say it, and if these people don't know me, then they can't tell me I never did it. So most of the time they have their children do these things. As I was saying, so most of the time they have their children do all these things that they probably wanted to do, or they have the child do things that will bring them praise as the parent. So, and most of the time, children of narcissistic parents are not allowed to be themselves, because they are either heavily criticized or just pretty much not given any positive feedback. So I'm going to go into the 10 signs of a narcissistic parent. The first one is, like I said prior, is using or living through one's child. So parents set expectations not for the benefit of the child, but for their own fulfillment and their own basically selfish needs and their own aspirations. Then, so the child's pretty much being raised not to have their own thoughts, but how would this make, my parent proud, or my mom or my dad or whatever. Their emotions and their goals, or the child, just being themselves, are the things that naturally a child would want to express, are pretty much diminished, unless it is to bring, as I said, praise to the parent. Then there's marginalization. So this is when the parent is threatened by the child's potential and success. This challenges the parent's self-esteem. So when this arises, the parent will make an effort to bring the child down. So they'll nitpick at things, have like unreasonable judgments. They'll criticize them. They'll invalidate them. Not like, hey, you did a good job, I'm proud of you. They will do that only if, as I said, they are getting fed is basically feeding their own ego. But if they see it as a challenge, like, okay, you're doing these things and people are raising you and not I, then they will try to bring the child down, or, you know, make them feel like, oh, what you did wasn't so great, you know, just to, like I said, everything a narcissist does is manipulation. So then there is grandeur and superiority. So many narcissistic parents have a false or inflated self-image, and they're very like conceited, self-centered, obviously, and they're selective with the people that they show themselves to. And I don't mean their real selves, because for me personally, I don't believe narcissistic people have real personalities outside. Yes, so they don't really have a personality. Their personality to me is always whatever they make up, whatever they want people to believe. So then, let's see. As I said, they treat people, selective people, how they want to, because they do need people to think that they're the best thing since sliced bread. So, but these people are just objects for self-gain, and sometimes the children are obviously objects for that same manner of behavior, and they are taught to, but the children are taught to obviously believe what they have everyone else believing. So when a child is being affected by that, they also begin to show that false kind of personality of superiority, because obviously it's a learned behavior. Not all children that are affected by narcissistic parents do develop this. Thank God for that. Then there's a superficial image. As I said, narc parents like to show off how special they are or how special their child is, and they enjoy basically parading the child around. And they consider this, you know, that's a part of their need for superiority, and it could be in any form. Materialistically, they just physical appearance of the child, in the things that they do and the stuff they accomplish, their background, and their memberships of like you know, high class, anything that's high class, or things that people can't really get, that any normal person wouldn't get, you know what I'm saying. And any like trophy person, like they think they have the perfect wife or the perfect husband or whatever the case may be, and their children are the greatest. And they go out their way to seek ego boosting attention and flattery. Then there's obviously manipulation. A narcissist's main food source. But they will guilt trip. And most times they're like, oh, I did everything for you, and you know, you're ungrateful. Or they'll start blaming the child, like, it's your fault I'm not happy. It's your fault I had to give up the things I wanted in life to have you. Or they start shaming the child, making the child feel. So, as I said, they'll start shaming the child, you know, telling them, hey, you didn't do good enough. You're making us look bad as a family, or you're making me look bad as a parent, whatever. Then there's a negative comparison. So if there's more than one child, they'll compare them to another child, or they'll compare them to like a cousin or just other people's children in general. Then there's unreasonable pressure. So it's like, you know, when a child was, say for example, the child's in sports, they would want them to feel like you didn't do your best. You know, you missed that shot. You didn't hit the ball hard enough, or whatever. You know, just making them feel like what they do or what they perform at is never enough. Then there's manipulative rewarding and punishment. So it's like, if you have it's like, if you do well, I'll give you this, but if you don't, this is what's gonna happen, kind of thing. Or making them feel like, say, the parent wanted them to go to a certain school and pursue a certain major, and then they didn't. The child's like, I don't want to do that. That's not what makes me happy. Well, they're like, oh, well, then you got to do what I want you to do, because I'm not going to help you then, or I'm not going to support you financially, or however which way, in order to, get the child to do the things that they want them to do. Then there's emotional coercion, where you're not a good child. They make them feel that they're not a good child unless they, measure up to their expectations of what they think is a good child, or a good person. Then there, so the common thing there is that love for a narc parent is conditional. I only love you if you make me look like this. I only love you if you could do this. Anything that makes the parent look good. It feeds the parent's ego. So the next one is inflexibility and touchy. So narc parents are highly rigid, and when it comes to the expected behavior of the child or the children, they get touchy, or they're triggered for the lack of attention and obedience, basically from the child. So then we have a lack of empathy. So the most common manifestation of a narc parent is their inability to be mindful of the child's, their own thoughts, their feelings, and validation of them. The only thing that matters, obviously, to the narc parent is their own feelings. So when a child has been through these types of behavior, they respond with 3 types of survival instincts. They fight back, they flee, they kind of put a distance between themselves and the parent, or they freeze and put up a forced persona, which is basically just, doing what the parent wants. And of course, sometimes this does result in the child therefore becoming narcissistic, or therefore having the tendencies. Then there's codependency and dependency. So some narc parents expect their child or children to take care of them forever, to always be a source. So this type of codependency can be emotional, physical, financial. The narc parent typically manipulates an offspring into making unreasonable sacrifices with little regard to the offspring's life. Because like I said, they need a source, and they don't want the child to be independent. So they make, the child codependent on their approval as well. Then there's jealousy and possessiveness. So a narc parent comes to the realization at some point that the child has to grow up, and they will, engage with other people, and also become independent, and also, date, obviously. So they would like to, they do like to kind of make the person feel like you don't really need this other person. This other person wants to just pull us apart because they're jealous of our relationship, of our bond, whatever. I said everything's manipulation. They also, they do this, like I said, because they want the child to be codependent on them, and so that they always have a source. And then obviously neglect. Neglect is a really big thing with them, because they need for the child to need them. So they will, yes, so then, as I was saying, so the last one is neglect. So as I said, the neglect, some parents may choose to focus on themselves. So, because they find that anything to do with them is much more exciting than raising a child. Those activities that they want to do are providing more of a stimulation, more of a validation for them, and they give them that form of self-importance. This could be about a job, just social flamboyance, putting themselves out there, or any personal adventures they want to go on or hobbies that they have. So the best thing for the child is either to, if it's possible, for them to like be with the other parent, if they have one narcissistic parent, and or just a family member, anybody outside of the narcissist themselves, or basically on their own. I know that this can be hard because the child is usually, it's under the age. So that's when hopefully someone else can step in for the child when they are suffering from narcissistic abuse. But that's all I have for you guys. Hopefully that's been helpful, and I will give you guys another topic soon. Bye.